the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
All right, here we go. Good to be with you as we start the week. Boy, we're sneaking up on Christmas. It's not. Jim, is your shopping all done yet?
I have not started it at all.
You and me. Maybe we'll go out together one of these days.
If I can do it by the 20th, it'll be a record-setting year.
Yeah, it's kind of my deal, too. By now, some stress is probably beginning to build in your life around Christmas. You know, it's rather ironic, I think, that the most unbelievably greatest event in the history of the human race should become a time of great stress. You know, I mean, think about it. God became one of us to save us from our sins. This is an inconceivable event, and one that should generate such joy and peace that all the world should be a calm place. And yet the opposite is the case. So here's my theory on it. This is the devil's doing, right? The devil is the sower of discord and disharmony. And this is how he goes about disrupting the peace of Christmas, is to put so much pressure on us for the parties, the entertaining, and the gift buying and giving. Let's talk about, this is a blog post written by Kyle Benson. I got it on the Gottman website. And it's titled, How to Stress-Proof Your Relationship This Holiday Season. So he says it's not uncommon for couples to feel overwhelmed or disconnected during the holidays, especially if one or both spouses feel triggered by certain events, right? We get triggered by things that frighten us based on things in the past that have happened that haven't been all that good, right? And so we want to avoid those things, so we're kind of on high alert, so we get triggered when certain things happen. That added stress can create tension and highlight relationship difficulties. True that. Having a plan can help you and your partner stress-proof your relationship and spend more time enjoying the holiday season. All right, so how to handle stress as a couple. All right, so here he goes. The holiday season can leave a spouse feeling unappreciated or resentful for doing all the work, the shopping and the cooking and the cleaning, etc. Or it can lead to, the other spouse feeling pressured into doing all these things their spouse's way, the way the other one wants it done. But holidays are a time to come together as a team, create a sense of balance. This template can help you stress-proof your relationship this holiday season. So, in other words, what he's going to talk about here is get organized. If you're organized, you're going to reduce stress. Okay. So, number one on his template, list all the urgent chores and responsibilities that require attention. This gives you an objective way for determining responsibilities, right? So another way to talk about this is your to-do list. So what is the to-do list? And get it all down on paper. Now, I can hear some of the excuses already. Well, I don't even have time to do that. I don't have time to sit down and make a list, right? Or just making the list seems overwhelming. I get exhausted just thinking about having to make the list because there's so much on it, right? So one way to do it is, each of you make your own list and then combine them, okay? And it was always kind of a head scratcher for me when I was in the corporate world and I was responsible for employee training and development, and there would be people who were really disorganized, and I'd sit down and say, hey, why don't we talk about how you get more organized? And they would say to me, I don't have time to get organized, or their desk is a disaster, and say, well, why don't we put some structure and some organization here so you can actually find things when you're looking for. Yeah, I don't have time. I don't have time to get organized and put the stuff in files so I actually know where it is. It's easier to take time going through stacks of paper looking for things than it is to actually take time going through the stacks and putting it into file folders. So I know. It's a head scratcher, but that's the deal. All right, so write it all down. Get it all down on a piece of paper so you can look at it all in one place. Number 2, add 3 columns to the list. One with your name at the top of it, one with your spouse's name at the top of it, and one for the both of you to do together. Okay, there you go. So now we got the to-do list, and now we got who we're going to assign it to, right? So you go through the list together and talk about each other's perceptions of how the holiday responsibilities, have been handled in the past. I think that's kind of optional, really. But discuss how you would like to approach them this year. So you go through all, 227 things on the list, and you get them assigned out. Now, sign out the easy ones first, because there are some that might be tough, might need some negotiation, some compromise, or you just don't really know what to do with them. Okay, so go through the easy ones first and assign who's doing what. And then if it makes sense, assign like a due date, right? Like, okay, so we're going to have all of the shopping and the buying done by the 20th. So that gives us the last few days to just relax and prepare spiritually for what's going on, right? Which is kind of important. And I think that's part of how I think, Satan shows up and disrupts the entire holiday season, is we're so busy we don't take time to prepare spiritually. And what a sad thing that is, right? And so I think as you're putting the list together, one of the things you got to build time in for is prayer. Or spiritual reading, or, whatever it is we're going to do, right? The Advent wreath, right? Make a time that we light it, say some prayers around it, time to just calm down, decompress a little bit, all right? By now, once you do all that, right? So you write it all down, now you've assigned it out, et cetera. It ought to feel a little more manageable right now. It ought to feel a little less stressful right now, because you've got a plan, and it's not all going to fall on you. You can count on your spouse do his or her share in the whole thing, right? So now there may be some items that don't get assigned because you're just not sure what to do with them, et cetera. All right, well, now this is the time to have a conversation about those and ask some open-ended questions to get some deeper understanding to what what your spouse is thinking about and how they look at the situation, right? So this is a learning opportunity, right? I get a chance to learn how my spouse feels about whatever this thing is that we just can't seem to agree on, and you got to look at it in that way, right? So you have your conversation, and Mr. Benson goes on, after both partners feel understood, determine how you'd like to proceed this year, compromise when needed so both of you feel comfortable with your plans. Compromise is a beautiful thing in marriage. The goal here is to find win-win solutions that put your spouse's needs on par with your own. Work together in developing solutions that satisfy both your needs. Then decide who's responsible, assign the task, and note the date on which it needs to be completed. Sounds pretty easy. It's not, obviously. Emotions get involved, etc., and fatigue gets involved, but that's how you do it. All right. So it goes on. Now you have a better idea of who does what and when, which should already relieve a great deal of stress. Dr. John Gottman's research shows that a purely equal division of tasks isn't essential. Keeping score can lead to resentment. And I really want to underscore that. Scorekeeping almost always ends poorly because we always feel we're getting the short end of the stick. We always add it up in a way that leaves us feeling that we are the abused party, right? So don't shoot for equal, shoot for balanced, shoot for comfortable, okay? And, it's more important that each spouse feels that the responsibilities are balanced and within my ability to accomplish and your ability to accomplish. Modify your plans if necessary and support each other. If your partner feels overwhelmed or flooded, see if you can help out by taking on some of the tasks, okay? So we're in this thing together, right? All right, so to further stress-proof your relationship, take time each day to check in with your partner, discussing any holiday stresses without trying to fix everything, right? Realize this too will pass. Christmas will come and go, but the marriage is going to last, and let's make sure that the marriage comes out in good shape. And I always recommend, and if you listen to the show with any regularity, I always recommend you make a 1% daily investment in your marriage. That's 10 to 15 minutes each day that you spend just the two of you nurturing your relationship and being nice to each other. And so you want to, maybe use that time to check in, make sure your spouse is doing well. When we're in a lot of stress, we tend not to take good care of the people in our lives and take good care of their heart, take good care of their emotions, take good care of the relationship, right? So we want to get rid of that stress as much as we can so we can relax and actually be present for each other. All right, some of his tips here, and I like this first one, is to have a stress-reducing conversation. Sounds like a pretty interesting idea, a conversation that can actually help reduce stress, right? The way the stress-reducing conversation works is you actually have a conversation with your spouse about the stressors outside of the marriage. This isn't a place you talk about what you're doing that's bugging me. This is where everything else that's bugging me, the job, the kids, the neighbor, my mother, my father, whatever. Okay, what are the other things outside of you and me that are causing you stress? And then I get to ask you, some open-ended questions about how you're feeling about all that stuff in the holiday season, but without me solving the problem, right? Instead, the idea is to listen to your spouse's concerns and express empathy, right? So a couple steps that are important here in a stress-reducing conversation, right? So you say, okay, listen, tell me what's going on in your outside world here that's causing you to lose your peace, right? And then listen carefully, and then ask questions for greater understanding. So things like, I'm not sure I really understand what you're saying there. Could you help me understand that in a little more detail? Or, are you saying this? I'm not sure I really grabbed it, all right? Which says to your spouse, man, he's really paying attention. And I feel valued then when I know you're paying attention. Make and maintain eye contact. Really important. Can't stress how important it is to actually look at your spouse when he or she is talking to you. It shows that you are interested and totally focused on that. So often I hear this, and I got an email where the husband wants to be on his phone while the wife's talking because he says he can multitask. Well, that would make him about the only guy on the planet who can do that. Maybe he is. Maybe he's that special. Not likely, right? So put down the screens, turn off the TV, the radio, whatever is distracting you, and look your spouse in the eye. Number 3, show empathy. You say things like, wow, that must be really hard. Or I can see how that would be difficult. Or I could see why that leaves you sad, okay? The idea of empathy is to try to actually feel what your spouse is feeling. And if your spouse is feeling sad, to actually become a little sad yourself because, you're that united that I feel what you feel. Okay. 4, show unconditional support for your spouse. Hey, it's us against them, baby. It's you and me against the world. And I'm in your corner. I got your back, or I got your front. If you want me to lead the charge, I'll do it. If you want me to be behind you to support you, I'll do that too. And one of the ways you do that is to ask the question, what do you need from me? What can I do for you? And let me say this to the spouses. Answer the question. When your spouse shows up and says, what can I do for you? Don't say, oh, nothing, I got this. Don't push them away. Give them something to do, even if it's just give me a hug. Or if it's, hey, I need you to go to the grocery store and pick this stuff up for me. Or, whatever. I need you to, I need you to get up in one night when the baby wakes up and give him a bottle so that I can, because I'm exhausted. Answer the question when your spouse says, what can I do for you? Take them at their word that they really want to help you, okay? Do not provide solutions unless asked. Let me emphasize this for all the gentlemen who are listening out there, because we're kind of this, we're hardwired to be problem solvers, and we might be actually really good at it. 9 times out of 10, though, our wife doesn't need us to solve the problem. They're not coming to us because they can't figure it out. And it's like, oh, thank goodness, Doug's home. Well, now we'll get this thing solved because I can't figure it out. That's not why they're coming to us. They're coming to us because they need someone to listen, to look at them, to empathize with them, and to support them. That's what they need. They don't need us to show up and start fixing it. So making suggestions without being asked almost always ends up badly, okay? And it doesn't matter who you're talking to. It's not going to end up good. And that's the deal. So, and I get it. It's hard not to make suggestions, especially when the solution seems so obvious. Don't do it unless you're asked. And you can ask the question to your spouse, say, hey, would you like my thoughts about this? Or, are you good? And just, if they say, no, I'm good, then just walk away, bite your tongue, and walk away. All right, so he goes on, and he says, you can also relieve stress and stay connected by sharing compliments, gratitude, and appreciation. Make an extra effort to notice the small things your partner does, such as the grocery shopping, wrapping the gifts, taking out the trash, emptying the dishwasher, right? Or making time for you. Verbalize your appreciation. And that's a big thing. And I do an exercise when I do public speaking or I'm at a parish date night or whatever, and oftentimes I'll do an exercise where I have the couples share something they really appreciate or are thankful for in their spouse, and the room gets transformed after about 5 minutes of that, and people are laughing and smiling and feeling really good. And we all love to get a compliment, and we don't do a good job of that. We're pretty quick to point out what you're doing that's bugging me, not so much what you're doing that brings me joy, right? So here's a goal. Maybe, as you're preparing here the home stretch for Advent, maybe one of your Advent resolutions could be say thank you each day for something specific your spouse has done. One thank you each day specifically for your spouse. I think that'd be a nice little Advent preparation thing, right? Verbalize it, or, write it down, leave a little note in front of the coffee pot or the mirror in the bathroom, by the toothbrush or whatever, One sincere, specific thank you each day. This entire episode of Marriage Unhindered is on the updated Relevant Radio app. The Relevant Radio app is completely free and updated daily with fresh articles, podcasts, and prayers.